The battlefield was silent. Not in the way a peaceful world might be, but in the way only death could bring. The air, thick with a scent of burnt metal and scorched flesh, hung over the ruined landscape like a funeral shroud. Bodies of soldiers, shattered war machines, and the smoldering remains of what had once been an alien outpost stretched to the horizon. Amid the destruction, something stirred. A massive creature, its body covered in jagged armor-like plating, dragged itself forward with slow, deliberate movements. Its once mighty form, designed to tear through enemy lines without mercy, was now broken, its powerful limbs weakened by deep wounds. The red haze in its vision flickered as its combat interface struggled to function, feeding it useless warnings, critical damage. Structural integrity compromised. Command signals lost. It ignored them. There were no commands left to follow. No voices in its mind directing it where to strike next. They had left it. The war beast, designation Vorik 7, had fought as it was made to. It had been their unstoppable weapon, their creation of destruction. And when the battle had turned, when the enemy's counterattack had overwhelmed their forces, its masters had given the retreat order. The warships had lifted off, abandoning the battlefield. Abandoning it. For the first time in its existence, it was alone. Vorik 7 heaved itself up, pushing against the pain that rippled through its frame. Its thick hide, a fusion of organic tissue and synthetic plating, had held against even the heaviest plasma fire. But even it had limits. Deep gashes in its side oozed dark ichor. One of its secondary arms hung limp, the muscle fibers beneath torn beyond repair. Its sensory nodes, once attuned to the battlefield like a finely tuned instrument, flickered in and out, struggling to register its surroundings. Survival protocols activated. The beast's instincts took over, overriding its damaged systems. Find shelter. Conserve energy. Regenerate. But where? There was no retreat, no extraction ship waiting. Only the charred remains of an alien city and the ghosts of the battle that had passed. Its creators had always told it that purpose was everything. A weapon with no war to fight was nothing more than scrap. Vorik 7 had never questioned that, until now. A sound. The beast's head snapped toward the noise, muscles coiling, claws flexing despite the pain. The battlefield had been silent, but now footsteps. Distant, cautious. Not the mechanical stomp of combat drones or the heavy march of its former masters. These were softer, deliberate. Humans. Its vision adjusted, focusing past the smoke. They were moving through the wreckage, their forms barely visible through the shifting haze. Scavengers? Perhaps. Survivors. Vorik 7's intelligence was limited in some ways, but it had fought humans before. They were tenacious creatures. Even when faced with superior technology, they never broke easily. The war beast lowered itself, minimizing its profile as much as its massive form would allow. It watched as the group approached. 5 figures, clad in dust-covered combat gear, moving with practiced efficiency. They were searching for something. Vorik 7's claws twitched. Instinct screamed at it to attack. Humans were enemies. They would see it as a threat. They would try to put it down. And yet, something held it back. Why? Was it exhaustion? The creeping realization that it had no orders left to follow? Or was it the way these humans moved, not like conquerors, but like those who had lost much already? One of them stopped, turning slightly. A human male, his face partially obscured by a cracked visor. Vorik 7 saw his grip tighten on his weapon, but he did not raise it. The war beast met his gaze, its wounded body coiled and ready. For a long moment, neither moved. Then, the human exhaled, almost as if in recognition. He reached for something at his belt. Vorik 7 tensed, expecting an attack. Instead, the human tossed something forward. It hit the ground with a soft thud. Meat. A ration pack, torn open. The scent hit Vorik 7's senses, overriding its thoughts with raw hunger. This was a test. The beast hesitated. The humans waited. And then, slowly, Vorik 7 shifted forward. For the first time, it did not act as a weapon. It acted as something else. Something more. Vorik, 7 had always understood war. It was carved into the very foundation of its being, each fiber of its biomechanical form designed for precision, power, and destruction. It had never known peace until now. The human, Captain Elias Voss, had done something no other sentient being had ever dared. He had reached out unafraid. Where others cowered or raised their weapons, this human offered something else entirely: understanding. It was a concept Vorik, 7 struggled to process. For centuries, it had been a harbinger of annihilation, deployed to extinguish threats before they could rise. Empires had trembled at its name. And yet, here it stood, abandoned by its creators, left to rust beneath the crushing weight of its own legend. But now, this human had found it, and instead of destroying what the galaxy feared, he had chosen to speak to it. A meeting of 2 warriors. "You're not just some machine, are you?" Elias said, his voice steady. "You're thinking, analyzing. You understand me." Vorik 7's optical sensors locked onto the man, scanning him in a way that had been reflexive for millennia. A warrior seasoned by battle. Scarred, but not broken. He was worthy. "Your people feared me," Vorik, 7 responded, its voice a deep, resonant growl that had once been a death knell to entire civilizations. "They should have destroyed me." Elias chuckled, shaking his head. "Oh, plenty wanted to. But that's not how we do things. We don't kill just because something is powerful. We try to understand it first." A dangerous philosophy. In Vorik 7's long history, power was always met with greater power. The weak perished, the strong endured. And yet, this human had not only survived his battles, but had sought out a force like Vorik, 7, instead of fleeing from it. It was a strategy Vorik, 7 had never encountered before. "Your people are different," it observed. "Yeah," Elias agreed. "That's what I keep telling the rest of the galaxy. They don't believe me either." A war forgotten, a purpose lost. The silence between them was not uncomfortable. Vorik, 7 processed the implications of this meeting. It had once been a warrior of the Vothkai Dominion, the perfect executioner in a war so old that most in the galaxy barely remembered its cause. Its creators, those who had forged it into a living weapon, had been wiped from existence, and they had left it behind. A warrior without an army, a legend without a purpose. For centuries, it had simply waited, not for rescue, not for vengeance, but for something that made its continued existence mean more than a relic rusting beneath the weight of history. Perhaps, against all probability, it had found that something. "What do you seek, human?" Vorik, 7 finally asked. Elias's expression hardened slightly, the easy smirk fading into something colder, more resolute. "I want to make sure my people don't end up like yours. The Council fears us, and fear leads to war. We'd rather avoid that." A grim laugh rumbled through Vorik 7's frame. "Wars are inevitable. Sooner or later, your kind will have no choice but to fight." Elias shrugged. "Maybe, but I'd rather have allies than corpses." He tilted his head. "And I think you'd rather have a reason to fight again, too." The words struck deeper than Elias could have known. Vorik, 7 had spent countless ages waiting, but perhaps it had been waiting for this. A cause worth standing for. A battle worth fighting. "Then let us see if your people are worthy," Vorik, 7 rumbled. "If you would walk alongside me, Captain Elias Voss, you must prove that humanity has the strength to stand where others have fallen." Elias grinned. "Oh, we'll do more than stand. You'll see." And for the first time in centuries, Vorik, 7 felt something new, anticipation. Vorik, 7 had seen countless warriors rise and fall, but never had it willingly tested one. The idea of proving humanity's worth was both intriguing and absurd. Yet, as it observed Captain Elias Voss standing before it, unshaken and ready, a long-buried part of its programming stirred, the need to challenge, to evaluate. "The galaxy fears your kind, but fear alone does not make something strong," Vorik, 7 said, its deep voice reverberating through the underground chamber. "Words are hollow without action." Elias smirked, cracking his knuckles. "Good. I'd be disappointed if you just took my word for it. The arena of a forgotten era. The ancient war machine gestured, and the floor beneath them shifted. Dust cascaded from the high ceilings as hidden mechanisms roared to life. Stone and metal plates groaned, reconfiguring the space into something that had not seen use in centuries, a combat arena. Elias took a deep breath. So, this is how you test warriors. In the time of the Vothkai Dominion, warriors proved themselves in the trial of dominion. Only the strong survived. Vorik 7's glowing optics flickered, scanning the human. You will either prove your kind's strength or perish. The walls retracted, revealing combat drones, ancient constructs, rusted but still deadly. They moved with mechanical precision, their energy blades flickering to life as they circled Elias. Elias rolled his shoulders. All right, let's see if your history lesson comes with a challenge. The drones attacked. A battle against the past. Elias moved fast, faster than Vorik 7 had calculated. The first drone lunged, but Elias sidestepped with fluid ease, slamming his elbow into its side. Sparks erupted as its balance destabilized. He pivoted, grabbing its arm and wrenching it free with a brutal twist. The machine collapsed, its circuits flickering. Another drone slashed with its energy blade. Elias ducked, barely missing the lethal arc, before launching himself upward with a powerful kick to the machine's head. The impact sent it skidding across the floor, its weapon sparking against the ground. Vorik 7 watched with growing interest. This was not normal. Other species relied on brute strength or overwhelming numbers. But Elias, he fought like he had done this 1,000 times before. Every movement was calculated, efficient. There was no wasted energy, no unnecessary motion. It was the kind of combat only a true warrior could master. Impressive, Vorik 7 admitted, stepping forward as the last drone collapsed in a heap of twisted metal. But these were old machines. They are nothing compared to what awaits you beyond this world. Elias exhaled, wiping sweat from his brow. You're right. But fighting old machines still beats listening to politicians talk about war. He cracked a grin. So, did I pass your little test? The war machine regarded him in silence for a long moment. The human had not just survived. He had dominated the battlefield. And he had enjoyed it. That, more than anything, intrigued Vorik 7. You are strong, it admitted. But strength alone does not win wars. You must have purpose. Elias's expression darkened slightly. Oh, I've got plenty of that. The council's already tightening their grip on us. It's only a matter of time before they decide to wipe us out for the greater good. We're not going to let that happen. Vorik 7's optics flickered. A species backed into a corner. A warrior fighting to ensure survival. It had seen this before, but never with a species as young as humanity. Perhaps they were different. Perhaps they had the will to rise where others had fallen. An alliance forged in battle. You seek an ally, Vorik 7 said. But I am not one to swear loyalty easily. Elias met its gaze, unflinching. I don't need your loyalty. I need a warrior who's willing to fight for something that matters. The war machine considered this. It had been abandoned by its creators, left to decay as the galaxy moved on. It had no cause, no purpose. But now, before it stood a man who did. Very well, Captain Elias Voss, Vorik 7 rumbled. I will stand with you. We will show the galaxy that humanity is not to be feared, but to be reckoned with. Elias grinned. Then let's get started. For the first time in centuries, Vorik 7's long-dormant systems began to hum with renewed purpose. The warrior within had awakened. The underground chamber had fallen silent. The battered remains of the combat drones lay scattered across the floor, their flickering circuits casting eerie shadows against the walls. Vorik 7 stood motionless, processing everything it had just witnessed. Humanity's strength was not mere bravado. It was something far more dangerous. Elias Voss dusted himself off and stretched his shoulders, as if the brutal test had been nothing more than a warm-up. So, he said, his voice carrying an edge of amusement, are we done playing games, or do I need to knock over a few more relics? Vorik 7's optics glowed faintly. You have proven your skill in battle, Captain. But wars are not won through combat alone. You must be prepared. Elias smirked. I was hoping you'd say that. Awakening the war machine. With a gesture, Vorik 7 activated a hidden command. The chamber trembled and the walls slid apart, revealing something buried beneath the ruins. Elias felt his breath catch as massive doors groaned open, releasing clouds of dust and steam. Inside lay an armory, a vast ancient stockpile of weapons, armor, and machines long forgotten by time. Rows of towering combat walkers stood dormant, their armored plating still gleaming beneath layers of dust. Racks of weapons, ranging from kinetic rifles to energy-based artillery, lined the walls. This was not a museum. This was a battlefield waiting to be unleashed. Elias whistled low. Now this is a stockpile. Vorik 7 stepped forward, running a massive hand across one of the battle-worn war machines. The Voth-Kai Dominion created these weapons to conquer the stars. But they failed, and their legacy turned to dust. Elias walked beside the war machine, inspecting the dormant technology. And you were part of that. I was their greatest creation, Vorik 7 admitted, without pride or sorrow. Built to command, built to destroy. But they did not understand what true war required. They relied on numbers, on intimidation. Its optics flickered toward Elias. You, however, you fight with intent. That is something I have not seen in a very long time. Elias chuckled, running a hand through his hair. Well, I appreciate the compliment. But right now, what I need is an edge. The Galactic Council has resources we can't match, fleets that could wipe us out in a direct confrontation. We need something to level the playing field. Vorik 7 turned toward a massive console, its ancient systems humming to life under its touch. A holographic display flickered into existence, revealing a blueprint of war. Then we begin. Forging humanity's arsenal. Vorik 7's knowledge was vast, and its understanding of warfare even greater. Elias quickly realized that this wasn't just an armory. It was a proving ground. Every weapon, every vehicle, every piece of technology had been designed for war, but had never reached its full potential. We will need to test these systems, Vorik 7 said, accessing long-dormant schematics. Weapons degrade. Power sources deteriorate. Without proper maintenance, they are nothing more than relics. Elias cracked his knuckles. Good thing I brought some of Earth's best engineers with me. Within hours, Elias's team had been brought in, scientists, mechanics, and weapon specialists. They marveled at the technology before them, their minds racing with the possibilities. Human ingenuity met ancient warfare, and together they began the process of bringing it all back to life. Power cores were reignited, weapons were recalibrated, and experimental armor plating was tested against modern energy weapons. The past and the present fused into something new. Elias stood back and watched as one of his engineers tested a newly repaired railgun, sending a tungsten round tearing through a reinforced target with devastating force. That, Elias muttered with a grin, is exactly what we need. The dawn of a new war. As the hours passed, Vorik 7 remained still, watching humanity work. They did not just repair, they improved. The war machine had seen countless civilizations rise and fall, but never had it witnessed a species so relentless in its pursuit of survival. Finally, Elias approached, wiping sweat from his brow. All right, Vorik. We've got weapons, armor, and enough firepower to make even the Council think twice. But that's just step one. We still need a plan. Vorik 7's optics flared. You wish to fight the Galactic Council? Not yet, Elias said, his expression hardening. But when we do, we're not just going to fight. We're going to win. The war machine's servos whirred as it straightened. Then we must prepare for more than battle. We must prepare for war. Elias nodded, his fists clenching. Humanity would not kneel. They would not surrender. And with Vorik 7's knowledge, they would ensure that when the time came, the galaxy would never be the same again. The ancient war factory hummed with renewed life. Engineers worked tirelessly, adapting the recovered technology to fit human warfare. Not just brute strength, but precision, adaptability, and ruthlessness. Elias Voss stood in the command center, surrounded by holographic displays flickering with schematics, battle simulations, and intelligence reports. Across from him, Vorik, 7 studied the data in silence. The war machine's glowing optics flickered as it processed the overwhelming efficiency of human engineering. "This is progress," Vorik, 7 finally said, its voice a low rumble. But war is not only fought with weapons. Victory is determined long before the first shot is fired. Elias folded his arms. "Then let's talk about that. We've got firepower now. We've got the men. But going toe-to-toe with the Galactic Council would still be suicide. So how do we win?" Vorik, 7 turned to the holographic map of the galaxy. "With strategy. A war of misdirection." The Galactic Council commanded fleets that stretched across hundreds of star systems. Their forces were vast, well-trained, and arrogant. That arrogance was humanity's greatest weapon. Vorik 7's metallic fingers traced over a key sector on the map. The Council expects a direct attack. That is what their enemies have always done. The war machine's optics flared. "We will not give them what they expect." Elias leaned in. "Then what do we give them?" A new projection appeared, one showing misdirection, sabotage, and deception. "You will not attack their fleets directly," Vorik, 7 explained. "Instead, you will strike everything around them. Supply chains, communication relays, resource depots. You will make them chase shadows." Elias smirked. "You want us to bleed them dry before they even realize where the real fight is?" Vorik, 7 nodded. "We make them believe that their power is crumbling. They will divert forces, weaken their own defenses, and spread themselves thin. That is when we strike. The first move." Elias turned to his officers, his mind already working through the plan. "All right, listen up. We need strike teams. Small, fast, and deadly. They hit hard, disappear, and leave the Council wondering what the hell just happened." A young officer, Lieutenant Sarah Idris, nodded. "We'll need to gather intelligence first. We don't just hit random targets, we cripple them where it hurts." Elias grinned. "Exactly. Vorik, can you pull up targets that would cause the biggest disruption?" The war machine's processors whirred. Within moments, key vulnerabilities flashed onto the display. The Xiphos Relay Network, a vital communications hub for the Council's military operations. Taking it down would blind them. The Nevran Fuel Depots, a massive refueling station supplying half the Council's fleet in this sector. Destroying it would strand their warships. The Arden Forge, a top-secret research station developing next-generation Council weapons. If humanity could steal or sabotage their advancements, it would shift the balance of power. Elias scanned the targets, then looked at his officers. "All right, we split our forces. Each team gets a target. We hit them at the same time. The Council won't know where to focus first." Vorik, 7 watched with approval. "You fight like no species I have ever known. You do not seek to win battles. You seek to control the war." Elias gave a sharp nod. "Damn right we do." The coming storm. The next few days were spent in preparation. Strike teams were assembled, weapons modified, infiltration plans drawn up. This was not just a battle. It was the opening move in a war of annihilation. Standing on a high platform overlooking the now fully operational war factory, Elias felt the weight of what was coming. Humanity was small, outnumbered, outgunned, but not outmatched. Sarah Idris joined him, arms crossed. "Are we really ready for this?" Elias exhaled. "We don't have a choice. The moment we hit them, there's no turning back. We either win or we disappear." Sarah nodded. "Then we make sure we win." Vorik 7's voice echoed behind them. "The time for hesitation is over. The first strike will determine the course of this war." Elias turned, eyes burning with determination. "Then let's make damn sure it's a good one." The fires of war had been lit. There was no stopping it now. The moment had arrived. The war factory's cavernous hangar was filled with the hum of engines, the sharp clicks of weapons being loaded, and the focused silence of soldiers preparing for battle. Every strike team had their target. Every operative knew their mission. The next few hours would determine the fate of humanity's war against the Galactic Council. Elias Voss stood at the front of the command center, eyes scanning the teams before him. "This is it," he said, voice steady, unwavering. "We don't get second chances. We hit them hard, we disappear, and we leave them scrambling. Stick to the plan, and we'll make history today." Vorik 7, standing beside him, spoke with the weight of an ancient war machine. "The enemy is unprepared. Their power is their weakness. Make them afraid." A low murmur of agreement passed through the ranks. It was time. The Xiphos relay, cutting the Council's eyes. In the vastness of space, a small infiltration vessel drifted silently toward the Xiphos relay network. The station was a massive construct of steel and energy, serving as the Galactic Council's primary communication hub in the sector. Taking it down would throw their entire war effort into chaos. Sarah Idris and her team moved swiftly through the station's outer corridors. Using stolen access codes, they bypassed security checkpoints, their weapons ready. The Council guards patrolled lazily, too secure in their own power to suspect a real attack. They would regret that mistake. Reaching the relay's core, Sarah planted a series of timed charges along the primary transmission arrays. With each explosive set, the countdown to galactic silence ticked forward. Then, the alarms blared. Contact. A Council guard barely had time to shout before Sarah's rifle silenced him with a burst of energy fire. More guards poured in, but the humans fought with precision and brutality. They weren't here for a prolonged fight. They had one objective: detonate and escape. Sarah keyed her communicator. Charges set. "We're exfiltrating now." As the team rushed back to their vessel, the first explosions rocked the relay station. The network flickered, then collapsed. Across the sector, Council warships suddenly lost communication. Orders were scrambled. Confusion took hold. The first strike had landed. The Nevrin fuel depots, stranding the fleet. On the surface of Nevrin 4, Council tankers loaded thousands of tons of Starship fuel into waiting transport ships. The fuel depots supplied over half the fleet in this sector. Without them, the Council's warships would be stranded. A team of human operatives, disguised as station workers, moved undetected through the facility. Among them was Reyes Kova, a demolitions expert. His job was simple: turn the planet's greatest fuel reserve into its biggest fireball. Kova worked quickly, setting high-yield charges at the main refinery tanks. Every bomb was linked to a central detonator on his wrist. The second the last charge was armed, Kova activated his comms. "We're done. Get clear." But before they could escape, a patrol squad spotted them. Intruders. Blaster fire erupted. Kova ducked behind a crate, returning fire as his team sprinted for the extraction point. They barely made it aboard their vessel before Kova pressed the detonator. A firestorm erupted behind them. The entire depot went up in a violent chain reaction. Council transports, still full of fuel, detonated mid-air. The planet's sky turned into a burning inferno. The Council's fleet had just lost its lifeline. The Ardent Forge, stealing the future. Deep in Council space, hidden behind layers of defense systems, lay the Ardent Forge. It was more than a research station. It was a fortress, developing next-generation weapons that could end humanity before the war even started. Elias Voss led this team personally. Unlike the other missions, they weren't here to destroy. They were here to steal. Moving through the shadowed corridors, Elias and his team used Vorik 7's schematics to navigate undetected. Every step forward was a step into the heart of the enemy's war machine. They reached the prototype vault. Inside, cutting-edge energy weapons, AI-controlled warships, and experimental power sources lay waiting. Vorik 7's voice crackled through Elias's earpiece. "Take the quantum core. It is the heart of their future technology. With it, we will surpass them." Elias and his team worked fast, extracting the core and uploading as much data as they could. But as they turned to leave, an alarm blared. Security droids activated. Armed guards swarmed the hallways. "Move!" Elias shouted. Escape was no longer an option. They had to fight their way out. Blaster fire erupted. The humans fought like demons, using the very weapons they had just stolen to cut through Council forces. Vorik 7 remotely disabled the station's defenses just long enough for the team to reach their ship. As they blasted off into space, the ardent forge behind them fell into chaos. The future had just been stolen. The galaxy reels. Across the sector, the Galactic Council descended into panic. Their communication network was in shambles. Their fleet was stranded. Their greatest research station had been robbed. The humans had not struck where expected. They had struck where it hurt the most. In the war factory, Elias stood before his gathered forces. They wanted to rule us, to keep us weak. But tonight, we've proven that we don't just fight back. He clenched his fist. We take control. Vorik 7's optics gleamed. The war has begun, and humanity had already won the first battle.